A very good morning to you. Welcome into today's programme. The Tánaiste Leo Varadkar is in town for a very special event in the GMIT, and he's kindly dropped into us today. Tánaiste, good morning to you. I'll talk to you about the GMIT in a moment. Morning. COVID figures, can I ask you, are you concerned? Because I'm looking at the headlines today. The 5-day average of COVID-19 cases has increased by 47% in the space of a week, now stands at 2,948 compared to 2,000 a week ago. Are you concerned?
Yeah, I am concerned, and certainly everyone in the HSE and in the Department of Health is very concerned too. We're seeing cases continuing to rise. There is an unreported backlog, and cases are still rising, so we would expect to see figures in the 4,000s over the next couple of days. So it is a matter of concern. But at the same time,
highest it's ever been, though, even during the pandemic. With the vaccination, why is it so high?
Well, because society is fully open and people are mixing and interacting again. And the difference now, of course, is we do have the vaccines. And if it weren't for the vaccines, we would be locking the country down at the moment because the figures are so high. But the 3,000 cases a day, 4,000 cases a day doesn't mean what it meant last winter or last summer.
No, because it's not putting the pressure on the hospital network.
So you see the numbers in the hospital today. It's around 450, 90 in ICU. Not good, but 450 in hospital. We've 800 more beds now than we had at the start of the pandemic, and that's been pretty stable. It was about the same this time last week, about the same 2 weeks ago. It will go up over the weekend. It always does. It'll fall again next week. So, so long as we don't see the hospital numbers go out of control, we think we can manage this through the winter period. And then obviously in the spring it'll improve, but it requires a number of different actions. So the first is the vaccine programme. We're encouraging people who are not vaccinated to get vaccinated. We're seeing a good uptake of that, by the way. People coming in for their first vaccine. The booster programme is now well underway, over 60s, healthcare workers. I think we will need to extend it to people under 60 with certain conditions as well. So that's the vaccine programme. There's also the eyesight test and trace. The best thing anyone can do if they have symptoms is to stay at home, get a test. That's really important. Can't emphasise that more. There's what we call the NPIs, the non-pharmacological interventions. So that's the masks, it's working from home, it's ventilation, all those things which make a big difference. And there is good news on the horizon in the UK where they've just licensed the first tablet for COVID. And we think the EMA will license that in the next few weeks. And that's really important because if somebody gets diagnosed at the moment for COVID, we've no treatment for them really. But this will be a tablet that you can take, and that will dramatically reduce the risk of you ending up in hospital, and that will really help too. But it's going to be a rocky road through the winter, but I think we can get through it without having to impose restrictions. But that's all about what we do as a government, but all about what people do as individuals as well.
Yeah. Some people, we've got such a high percentage of people that are vaccinated, and some of those that are vaccinated feel that it's the unvaccinated that's causing this problem because the majority of people that are ending up in hospital are unvaccinated and putting pressure on the system. Now, you can't make it compulsory, but there's that feeling out there, Tánaiste.
Yeah, and there's some truth in that. Only about 7% of the adult population are not vaccinated at the moment. Yeah. But if you go into the ICUs, half the people in the ICU are not vaccinated. So, if you're not vaccinated, you're 7 or 8 times more likely to end up very sick, requiring intensive care than somebody who's not. And while it is a personal choice not to get vaccinated, it does have implications on other people because that ICU bed could be used for somebody who needs a spinal operation. It could be used for somebody who has been on a waiting list for years. So that personal choice not to get vaccinated does have an impact on your neighbours and on society. But it'd be wrong just to blame unvaccinated people because the vaccine is really effective at preventing people from getting sick and dying from COVID. It's not as effective as we hoped it would be in terms of transmission. And even those of us who are fully vaccinated, we have a responsibility to try and avoid the virus being transmitted. Yeah. And that's why the masks are important, the ventilation, social distancing where practical, not telling people to stay at home or anything like that, but reducing social contacts, those types of
Common
things.
sense is what you're really saying.
Yeah, a lot of that. And actually, like a lot of the things we've learned in the pandemic are common sense because, I think a new feature of winters in Ireland is going to be from time to time, we're going to be asked to wear masks or social distance, wash our hands, all those things because they prevent the spread of other viruses too.
But you'd be confident we don't have to go into lockdowns or restrictions or otherwise between now and whenever?
Yeah, I'm not ruling that out and I can't. The CMO is not ruling it out either, but as things stand with the numbers in the hospitals, about 4% of our beds are being used by COVID patients at the moment, maybe a third of ICU beds. That is manageable. And we projected that we could get to the point where we've 150 in ICU, 800 to 1,000 in hospital. That would be difficult, but it would also still be manageable. Getting beyond that, I think we'd be in a different situation. But we are watching what's happening around the world. If you look at England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, not exactly examples to follow, but they've had similar case levels to us now for months, and they managed to avoid reimposing restrictions. Israel, a great country to take a look at, the first to vaccinate and the first to boost, they're now getting very low numbers again. So that shows the strength of the booster program. And we're seeing now in the over 80s, there's no increase in infections. Infections are falling a little in the over 80s. And that's down to two things, them going for their booster shots. So thank you for doing that. But also secondly, people over 80 probably being a little bit more cautious again and shielding themselves. And that's part of the advice too.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave COVID to one side for a few moments because I want to go to GMIT. You're here for that, the new extension indeed to the GMIT hub and medical imaging suite formally. You're opening it formally indeed later on this morning. The GMIT really under President Orla Flynn, they really are moving forward in leaps and bounds. They're a great bunch of people.
Yeah, it's going to be my first visit. So actually,
really?
I've been to.
You're in for a treat.
I've been to NUIG and UCG when it was called that a million times, and I've never been to GMIT. So looking forward to the visit. And what I'll be doing there is opening the new medical imaging suite, and it's really in my role as enterprise minister, because one of the things that ITs and GMIT is at the forefront of this has been really good at doing is being incubators for small, innovative Irish firms that. Employ a lot of people and very often expand and go global themselves. And while we're really committed to our model of getting FDI, getting foreign investment into Ireland, what I'd love to see even more is an Irish company getting started, growing, going global, doing well itself. And the ITs have proved to be really good incubators for that. And this will double GMIT's capacity to do that. So, lots more innovation, high quality jobs coming out of Galway.
But it's the way forward. It's the way to keep Galway on the map, and it's the way to get people into employment as well. I mean, I know some of the companies that have come out of GMIT, and they're now hugely successful.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I have the names of some of them in front of me. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but I give them a big shout out to this Blue Drop Medical, BioWave and Origen, who are among the three that get listed by Enterprise Ireland as real success stories that they want others to emulate.
But that's the way forward indeed. We love the big multinationals and the Boston Scientifics and all of that, but they all have to start somewhere, and that's why GMIT and others are doing such a good job in this field. That's
right. And it's a huge part of our enterprise strategy not to put all the eggs in one basket. So we want FDI coming into the country, really important. But we need to grow our own indigenous base too. And we also need to remember the SMEs, those small and medium enterprises across the country that employ a huge number of people. Those small businesses, from Shop Street to Salt Hill to wherever you want to mention, those small businesses actually employ more people than the public sector and all the multinationals combined. And we need to never forget that too. And can I ask you, just in relation to, with the taxation rate and the discussion about corporate taxation and all of that that's gone on across the world indeed, will that affect indeed Ireland as a future site indeed for the multinationals and startups like this? When it comes to getting investment in Ireland, we've always had a few elements to our strategy. So one is tax, the other is talent, having the people, the skills. The other is our track record in welcoming and keeping investment in Ireland. There's our position in the European Union, and then there's also the fact we're English speaking. So it's never been all about tax. Tax is only part of it, but I think our tax offering is still going to be very good. The agreement now is the rate will be 15%. That agreement has yet to be ratified by US Congress, European Parliament, all of that. But if it does happen, 15% is a very competitive rate. It'll still be lower than the UK, the US. And crucially, and this is actually why it could help work for us, in fact, it prevents other countries undercutting us. And we don't have the lowest rate, actually. Yeah. Hungary, Estonia, lots of other countries have gone lower than us, and we were a bit worried they might take a bit of business from us. And that now becomes less likely. From the portfolio that you have, what are the major challenges facing you and Enterprise Ireland and the IDA and the local enterprise offices then? Well, there's a lot at the moment. Like, one thing businesses say to me now all the time, small, medium and large, every sector, is the difficulty they're having recruiting staff. Real difficulties recruiting staff. And at all levels? Yeah. And that can be, highly skilled people who need particular degrees and qualifications. It can be people who don't need much, at least in terms of formal qualifications. So that's a real difficulty. People put that down to the PUP. I think that's overstated. We had 650,000 people on the pandemic unemployment payment. At some point, they needed it. It was right that it was in place. We're down well under 100,000 now. So, 6 out of 7 people have gone back to work, and I believe the rest will over the next few months. But some of it, I think, is down to things like the cost of childcare, which government's going to have to do more on. I think in the next budget, we had a good start in this one, but we're going to need to do more on that so that more people can get back to work if they choose to. And then around skills, like one thing we're really promoting now is further education and apprenticeships. There's been a big drive in Ireland over the past 10 or 20 years to almost encourage everyone to go to university, get a degree. Still a really good thing to do. But perhaps we haven't emphasised enough the really good careers and really good salaries and incomes that are on offer for people who take up jobs in apprenticeships in construction and care roles. And that's where there's a huge shortage now at the moment.
Plus, we also lost an awful lot of people who went home during the pandemic as well, and they haven't come back. And that's why some areas of the hospitality industry are finding it very difficult to get staff.
And we hope they will. For the last 20 years, we've had a very good churn of migration. People from Brazil and also people from Central and Eastern Europe coming to Ireland to work. A lot did go home during the pandemic. And job opportunities in Eastern Europe are actually much better than they used to be. A bit like Ireland, when we had our Celtic Tiger experience, that's happening in some Eastern European countries. So to a certain extent, we'll have to look a bit further east, and the work permit system will help with that. I think the Brazilians will come back now. The travel restrictions were very tough on them. It was mandatory quarantine, but that's gone now. But also I think, and I know employers won't all like to hear this, but it does need to be said, raising terms and conditions and pay is going to be part of this too. Because one of the ways you can attract and retain staff is through higher levels of pay and better terms and conditions. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing by trying to bring in a living wage, bring in sick pay from next year. Difficult, I know, for some employers to accept because of the high costs that they face. But actually, if we're going to continue to recruit and retain staff, I think it's going to be part of the new future.
Can I ask you, just I mentioned earlier, David McRedmond was with us from An Post, and he's announcing as we speak in the Galmont Hotel, indeed, a new permanent home for the Galway International Arts Festival, and a new civic building, indeed, at the An Post headquarters in the centre of town. It's going to rejuvenate the centre of town, and Galway needs that.
Yeah, that's great news, and I would be remiss of me not to mention my my ministerial colleague Hildegard Naughton, who's of course the minister responsible for An Post,
and put a lot of work into it.
Yeah, so it's great to see that happening, and to see that building being used for a useful civic purpose. And I have a personal interest in the Connacht Rugby development. Really keen to see that start too, because Galway is a little bit short of kind of theatre space, exhibit space, and I think that can change a lot in the next couple of years. But the announcement today is amazing, and really want to thank An Post and David Redmond and the team in Galway as well for making that happen. Like
you with Connacht Rugby, he's taking a personal interest. Can I ask you about the coalition? How are you getting on? Is it the odd row now or anything? Are you all getting on okay?
Sure, of course there is. Like, you
just
wouldn't,
yourself and myself talking. Forget these lights and cameras and all that stuff.
You couldn't have 3 parties in a coalition and 18 people around a cabinet table without a few rows. But
does it get tense at times?
No, not really. I've a kind of good read of this. This is the 3rd coalition I've been a member of.
Okay, so you're used to partnerships.
Used to making them work. And this one is going as well, and is as stable as the last 2. So I think this government will go full term.
Will it?
I believe so, yeah. And it's very, very solid at the moment.
Would you like to see it going full term, or would you like to go to the people?
No, I definitely think it's better to go full term. The last government got 4 years almost full term. Yeah. The one before that went full term 5 years. I think the public wants to get on with the job and get on with the business, get people back to work, build more houses. It looks like this year, despite the pandemic, we'll build more than 20,000 new houses in Ireland, which is great, but we need to be up around 30,000. Just this week, as you know, we launched our new climate action plan, need to be implementing that. Yeah. So being in government is a privilege. You never take it for granted. And anyone I know who served in government, they always say to me that they wish they had longer and wish they'd been done more. Wish they'd actually taken more risks. So
there is a body of work to be done on this whole climate change to try and bring everybody on board, young and old alike, because we're talking about retrofitting. Some people can't afford it. If they're getting the HAP payment, they get it paid for them. There's a bit of confusion around it. I think there's a lot of work to be done in that regard. Maybe during the term of office of the government.
Yeah, there is, and I know the sense I have from the public is they want us to take climate action. Younger people in particular want the government to do more. Yeah. But at the same time, it's only human nature that people are a bit worried about what it might mean. How does it affect my job? How does it affect my business, my farm? How's it going to affect the cost of living? Yeah. Will I still be able to fly abroad on holidays? So, I think the plan that we've agreed isn't about coercing people. It's about convincing people and encouraging them to get on board. Like, nobody's going to get a letter in the post telling them to reduce the size of their herd or give up their car or renovate their house. That's not going to happen. But what we are going to do is have a mix of incentives and disincentives that help people to make the right decision environmentally. So, if it is the case that they're changing their car at some point over the next 10 or 15 years, it'll tip them in favour of the electric vehicle. If it is the case that they're going to make home improvements over the next 10 or 15 years, maybe instead of the patio or conservatory, they might go for the insulation instead,
I think that the apathy that people have, China putting up so much and everyone else putting up so much, and we're only a small little island. I think all that needs to be treated as well. Can I go back to GMIT? Have you any major announcement you're going to make up there? Are you just going to cut the tape, or have you any secrets that you want to?
No big announcement.
Extra funding for Orla Flynn. She's a hell of a president, I'll tell you, Orla Flynn.
I believe that, yeah.
I said that to your colleague Simon Harris when he was going to Castlebar to meet her recently. She's a wonderful president, and she's going places, and she is the future for education.
And the big move, as you know, with GMIT is the development of the Connacht Ulster Technological University, and I think that's going to be a real upgrading, I think, of the institution and a real benefit for the region, not just for Galway, but also for Mayo as well, which the Castlebar campus, which is an important piece in this too. Huge.
Tánaiste, thank you for joining us today. Again, safe travelling to GMIT. Have you much more on in Galway then?
I'm going to meet with some business people later on just to take the pulse, if you like, of the business community here in Galway, mainly small businesses, and then going to meet the Fine Gael team in Clare Galway tonight from the two constituencies. So I am party leader as well as Tánaiste, so keen to talk to my team as well. So. And
will that be like a parliamentary party on a Wednesday? Will they be tweeting out that meeting during it, or otherwise?
Actually, that's one of those fundamental differences. I've since we've been able to travel since September, I've been back on the road, spending at least a day a week outside of Dublin. I've done 7 constituency visits where I've met with the Fine Gael councillors and the Fine Gael officer boards and the members, and not a single thing has leaked. So I wish my parliamentary party were as discreet as my councillors and members, but there you go.
Maybe some of your councillors don't know how to tweet. But you have a few robust ones there. They're like the Pete Roach now. In other words, they're not afraid to have their feelings articulated, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. I know Pete from his time, from his time working with work with Minister Kynes. So we've got a good team actually, I think, on Galway Council. So
no, you have a good team on the council, and you have a good team on the city council. Eddie Hoare is there, and again a bright new star there. So so Clare Galway tonight.
That's nice. Yeah, I'm back to Dublin before midnight, before my car turns into a pumpkin.
Lads, can you get the cameras into Clare Galway Hotel tonight, just in advance, and we'll film that as well. Tánaiste, thank you indeed for joining us today, and thanks to all of your team indeed.
Just heard that.
Sloan, thank you indeed for joining us today, and again, good luck with the GMIT event today as well.